Collecting Mormon documents is not for the faint of heart. In fact, there have been times it has gotten people killed. In this video, I will show you what items you can collect. I will show you telltale signs of a forgery. And if you stick around to the very end, I will even show you a forgery that is worth more than the original artifact that it was supposed to be. An easy place to start for collecting early Mormon documents, or just Mormon documents, would be to try to acquire a document signed by every president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormon Church. And that is something that I've been able to do. In fact, I've tracked down numerous documents of each president of the church. One of the most interesting items to collect are these Kirtland Safety Society notes. They are actually a type of document. They have signatures on them. They went to a press. If we go back to 1837 when these were done, there was not a national currency yet. There were coins, but there was no national currency. That will not happen till the Civil War, till 1862. And so towns would often have their own bank. Well, the town of Kirtland set out to get a charter, but it was rejected. They had sent some people to Philadelphia to get these blanks. Upon return, they found out they did not have a charter, and so they said, okay, we're not going to be a bank. We will be an anti-bank. So they would handwrite on these documents where it says Bank, AntiBanking Association. So these are very collectible. And then they were signed, but that was a tedious process to sign a lot of these. And so those are going to be the most valuable because you want one of these notes that has the anti on it. Those are the more valuable. There's far fewer of those. And it's those earlier notes you have a much better chance of it being an actual Joseph Smith signature. Whereas after the fact, they were secretarial. Getting a Joseph Smith Kirtland Safety Society note is one of the best places to start. Now, on the Kirtland notes, there is a 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, 50, and 100. But it's typically the lower ones that you will see the anti and the actual Joseph Smith signatures. And you say, well, what are the price on these? It's all over the place. The 5 and the 10 are the most common. Those current market are typically $3,000 to $5,000 just for a plain copy. But the antis often are over $10,000. And if you get some really rare ones, they can be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. I talked about forgeries. Were there Kirtland Safety Society notes that were forged? The answer is yes and no. Mark Hofmann was a forger back in the early 80s who ended up, trying to cover his tracks. He was a pretty skilled forger for the time. He ended up killing some people with pipe bombs to cover his tracks. In fact, this is his business card, Mark Hofmann, buy, sell, trade, Mormon autographs. And this is an actual forgery of some Deseret currency with a forged signature of Brigham Young. This is an actual known forgery that is worth more than an equivalent note that is authentic with an actual Brigham Young signature. Far fewer of these exist. That's kind of crazy that is the case. Keeping in mind that a forgery could exist out there, this is a graded note, PCGS or PMG. These are graded. Now this note is authentic, but I have taken a UV light, and this is what's known as a re-signed note, with additional signatures added of Brigham Young, Heber C. Kimball, and Newell K. Whitney. But I have put this under ultraviolet light, and there's a purple haze, which is an indication of a forgery. In all reality, it was Mark Hofmann who added those signatures to this particular note. Good news, bad news. Bad news, it's a forgery. Good news, the value is still the same because it's a re-signed note, but it's a Hoffman re-signed note. That's an interesting little twist on forgery. I have binders of documents. In documents, now I'm known for not using gloves to handle books, but on documents, they should be encapsulated. And I have binders to protect these. But here is a Joseph Smith document right here. This is a handwritten document from Nauvoo, and at the bottom it's signed by Joseph Smith, Hyrum Smith, and Sidney Rigdon. Those are all spectacular signatures and highly collectible. Brigham Young documents are surprisingly common. You can find Brigham Young documents, just a cut signature, for around $500, or a document, and it depends on the content. That's the valuation. It is the Wild West in a way. It depends on the content. The better the content, the higher the price for something. You can have 5 people each with a Brigham Young document, and if one has spectacular content, it will always be worth more than one that has pretty mundane content like a request for an autograph. Here are cut signatures from presidents of the church, including Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, John Taylor, and Wilford Woodruff. Any documents with Joseph Smith and John Taylor, those are the rarest. And I have samples of those. There's not like a price guide, and price guides are going to go out of date. So these prices I'm giving you are good now. They tend to be good for several months. But it's just kind of a rising tide in the valuation and just how many items and documents are out there. A good place to start is with these Kirtland Safety Society notes. Again, the 5 is the most common, then the 10 is pretty common. The least common are like the 50, 20, 100, and then the 1, 2, 3. Photographs are also highly collectible. These smaller carte de visite or CDVs are very collectible. This is surprisingly rare. For example, B.H. Roberts. This is when he's in disguise after he had gone back to try to get the bodies of 2 Mormon missionaries who had been murdered. He wanted to go incognito, so he shaved off his famous mustache and had this. And this is a picture he took after he did that little task. That little photograph is worth a few $1,000s, for example. There are other little items called ephemera. That's like a printed bulletin or something like this, for example. That is a library card, but it's the library card of the famous Mormon forger, Mark Hofmann. So that little piece, that has value because it's a random piece of paper that often would get thrown away. But you go back 40 years, and this was a card for the New York Public Library that this guy was using to do research on his forgeries. So, in fact, this gives him permission to do research on Jack London, and it says he's a coin dealer, but it's known that he did forgeries of Jack London autographs on books. Pricing of documents is very tricky because, again, it is content. I have this handwritten document from Nauvoo that I showed earlier. For example, that is a $100,000 document with those 3 signatures, Joseph Smith, Hyrum Smith, and Sidney Rigdon. I have another land deed from Nauvoo, but the owner, the person who purchased that land, was King Follett, as in the King Follett Discourse, which is Joseph Smith's most famous discourse. That is the land that King Follett bought. He's digging a well, and a bucket of rocks falls on him and kills him, and that's when Joseph gives the King Follett Discourse. This is one of the only King Follett Discourse related artifacts in private hands. I have a Brigham Young document written to John D. Lee, who 5 months later will be involved in the Mountain Meadow Massacre. Again, that increases the value anytime there is an interesting backstory. If you've made it this far, you are a very select group of people that really likes to dive in deep and talk about the little known facts of collecting. Now's a good time to encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe if you would like more of these videos.